Chapter 40 Murray. The high-tech crime unit was a mile from the nearest police station, in the middle of an industrial estate. Marked cars and uniformed police officers were strictly forbidden, and nothing about Unit 12 suggested that inside the grey concrete box was dozens of IT specialists taking apart laptops, analysing hard drives, and extracting the worst kind of pornography from encrypted files. Today, the car park was empty, save for one car. Murray pressed the buzzer and looked up at the camera. What? No Santa hat? Came the disembodied voice, followed by a harsh buzzing noise and a loud click at the door. Released. Sean Dowling had the sort of personality that entered a room a second before he did. Broad-shouldered and stocky, he still played rugby every Saturday, despite pushing 60, and today sported a deep purple bruise across the bridge of his nose. He shook Murray's hands vigorously. Could have used you against Parkhouse the other week. Murray laughed. Long since retired, mate. I don't know where you get the stamina. Keeps me young, Sean grinned. He held open the door. Good Christmas? Quiet. Sorry to drag you in over the holidays. Are you joking? Tracy's mum's staying. I was halfway out the door before you put the phone down. They caught up as they walked, promising to get together for a beer and wondering aloud why they'd left it so long. It was so easy, Murray thought, when you're working on a case. So easy to socialise, to make new friends and stay in touch with old ones. But returning to a civilian job after retiring, he had hoped that this element of the job he loved so much would have survived unharmed. But as more of Murray's peers had retired, so the after-work beers had petered out. Murray's doubted any of the officers at Lower Meads even knew their front counter. Civvy had once been one of Sussex's most respected detectives. Sean led Murray to the corner of a large open-plan room. Air-conditioned units installed for the benefit of the myriad computers rather than their users, railing at either end of the room, and the floor-to-ceiling windows were obstructed by blinds, preventing curious passersby from looking inside. Only Sean's workstation was in use. A dark green parka hung over his chair. On the desk were 3 storage boxes, each filled with clear exhibit bags, their red plastic seals protruding at all angles. Beneath his desk were another 2 boxes, both full. In each bag was a mobile phone. We've got a bit of a backlog. No kidding. Sean pulled up a second chair and flipped open a large black project book. At the top of the page was the mobile number of the caller who had given the name, Diane Brent Taylor. The SIM card was pay-as-you-go, so it will need to work on the handset itself. It was active for 6 months after the incident, although no calls were made. Sean spun his pen like a baton through his fingers. Is there any way of finding out where the handset is now? Not unless you witness or whoever has it now turns it on. An over-enthusiastic twirl set the pen flying across the room, where it skidded under a filing cabinet. Absent-mindedly, Sean reached for another pen and began the same well-practiced movement. Murray wondered how many pens there were under the cabinet. Now what we could do is extract the call data and find the IMEI in English. Sean grinned. Every device has a 15-digit unique number. It's IMEI. It's like a fingerprint for your mobile. It can trace your witness call back to the handset. We can work back from that to the point of purchase. And from that, Murray thought he might stand a chance of tracing the caller, particularly if they use a bank card to make the transaction. How could you get me a result? How soon could you get me a result? You know I'm always happy to do mate a favour, but Sean looked at the RAM storage box in front of them and rubbed his face, forgetting his bruise and wincing at the oversight. What's the big deal with this job anyway? No big deal. Murray spoke more casually than he felt. The daughter came in to report some concerns over the verdict, and I'm looking into it for her. In your own time, I hope she appreciates it. Murray looked at the desk. He was trying not to dwell on his phone call to Anna. He had caught her at a bad time. That was all. It was bound to be distressing. It was only natural she'd have doubts. Once he had heard hard evidence that something suspicious happened to her parents, she'd be grateful he had pressed on regardless. Nevertheless, the sharp click as she hung up the phone still echoed in his ears. Sean sighed, mistaking Murray's expression for disappointment in him. Look, I'll see what I can do. I appreciate it. More importantly, get your diary out and let's get that beer sorted. You know it'll never happen otherwise. Sean opened a calendar on his laptop, firing up off dates that instantly realised they were already booked. Murray patiently turned the page of his National Trust pocket diary until Sean found a window. Then he borrowed a pen and wrote on the pristine page. He hummed along the radio as he drove away from the industrial unit, the winter sun low in his eyes. With any luck, Sean would get back to him later today. The holidays were providing a legitimate reason for Murray's delay in writing up the job for CID, and if he could get a result on the phone before he did so, he might be able to hand it over with a suspect attached. Besides getting the phone looked into, there was something nagging him about his visit to Diane's house. It was Diane herself. Murray prided himself on being a good judge of character, and if the twins said and Pearl pensioner was a murderer, he would eat his trilby. But there was definitely something he'd seen on the notice board at the front door, a leaflet, a card. It was infuriating not to be able to remember. And as Diane had been packed to go away the day Murray had visited her, there was nothing he could do to jog his memory. At home, he paused with the key in his lock, feeling the familiar anxiety fill his chest. The pause represented the last few seconds where life was under control, where he knew which way was up. On the other side of the door, anything could be waiting. Over the years, Murray had perfected a neutral greeting while he waited to see how Sarah was, what she expected from him. But he had never stopped needing those 3 seconds between the two halves of his world. I'm home. She was downstairs, which was an improvement. The curtains were still drawn, and as Murray pulled them open, Sarah winced and covered her eyes with her hands. How are you feeling? Tired. Sarah had slept for 12 hours, but she looked as though she'd pulled an all-nighter. Heavy circles ringed under her eyes, and her skin was grey and dull. I'll make you something to eat. I'm not hungry. Cup of tea? I don't want one. Gently, Murray tried to take the duvet to shake it out, but Sarah clung to it and burrowed herself deep into the sofa. The television was mute, playing a kid's cartoon featuring animals in a zoo. Murray stood for a while. Should he make something anyway? Sarah sometimes changed her mind once the food was actually in front of her. Just as often, though, she didn't. Just as often, Murray ate it, or tipped it away, or covered it with cling film, in the hope she might fancy something later. Murray looked at the pile duvet at his wife, who had manoeuvred herself as far from him as it was possible to get without actually leaving the sofa. I'll just be there, through there, then, if you need anything. There's no sign that Sarah had hurt him. Murray brought in an empty recycled box from the garden. Methodically, he opened each drawer in the kitchen, removing the sharp knives, the scissors, the blades from the food processor. He took the kitchen foil from the cupboard and carefully pulled out the strip of serrated metal from the cardboard housing. He collected the caustic cleaning products from under the sink and over-the-counter medicines from the dresser drawer. It had been a while since he had felt the need to do this, and he didn't want to think about why he felt necessary now. Instead, he mentally walked through to his visit to Diane Brent Taylor, in the hope he would remember what it was that caught his eye on the notice board. The front door had been white, new PPC, the external doormat, a mix of core and rubber. Inside, the whole floor was laminate, and deep red panels had made the already gloomy downstairs even darker. The notice board had been on the left, a barber shelf with a motley collection of items. What had been there? A hairbrush, a postcard, keys. He visualized each section of the shelf until the items took shape. A grown-up version of the memory game he had played as a child. Murray put everything in the recycling box and took it down to the bottom of the garden. He opened the shed and began burrowing the box beneath dusty decorating sheets. As he did so, his thoughts returned to the board. What was on it? More postcards, at least 3, one with Table Mountains on it. He remembered it because Cape Town was on his list of dream destinations. A lift for a beauty salon, a list of telephone numbers. Had he recognized the name on the list? What was it that was nagging him? What are you doing? Murray hadn't seen Sarah come into the garden, and the voice directly behind him made him clumsy. He collected himself before turning around. Sarah was shivering, her lips tinged blue after just a few seconds out of the warmth. Her feet were bare, and her arms wrapped around herself, each hand tucked beneath the sleeve of the opposite arm. Her fingers moved rhythmically, and Murray knew she was scratching at skins already red raw from the same action. He touched his hands on both the upper arms, and the movement ceased. I am hungry. I'll make you something. Murray led her back up the garden, found her slippers, and sat her in the kitchen. Sarah said nothing as he made her a sandwich with a blunt knife that tore the bread, but she ate ravenously, and Murray counted that as a win. I've been working on the Johnson job. He searched for a spark of interest in Sarah's eyes, but found none. Murray's heart sank. He had taken his litmus test, and the results reinforced what Murray already knew, that Sarah was heading into another difficult period. He felt as though he was flailing in deep water, halfway across the channel with no support board. Not that there was much now, he added, and he couldn't have said whether he was talking about Anna's change of heart or the fact that the investigation was no longer the lifeline he had seen to be for him and for Sarah. Sarah stopped eating. Deep lines around her forehead as she looked at him. Anna Johnson doesn't want an investigation, Morris said slowly, pretending he hadn't seen her react, pretending he was talking to himself. He stared at a spot just to the right of Sarah's place. So I don't see why I should spend my spare time. Why doesn't she want an investigation? I don't know. She told me to drop it. She was angry. She hung up. Angry or scared? Mary looked at Sarah. Because if she's scared, it might sound like she's angry, like she doesn't want you to carry on. She was certainly very clear about that, Mary said, remembering the way Anna had slammed down the phone. She doesn't want my help. Sarah was thoughtful. She might not want it. She picked up Sarah's and pushed it away and looked at her. But maybe she needs it.